Hello students, welcome to my live teaching learning session of BECC 134 Principles of Macroeconomics-II. You know that we have discussed with you that what is macroeconomics. You know that in my macro 1 you have studied about this. In this Principles of Macroeconomics-II, we have discussed ISLM model in unit 1. Now we are doing Phillips curve and unemployment and inflation. This unit is very broader unit. So in this unit we have discussed that what is the meaning of inflation, what are the various types of inflation, and what is the main logic behind this Phillips curve, what relationship Phillips curve explain. In today's session, we will discuss about short run and long run Phillips curve. First of all, Phillips curve explain the inverse relationship between inflation or wage inflation and unemployment. So there is an inverse relationship between wage inflation and unemployment according to A.W. Phillips. In 1950s, Phillips explained this theory that if wage inflation increases, then unemployment rate will fall and vice versa. So there is an inverse relationship between unemployment and wage inflation. So the question is that this relationship or inverse relationship between unemployment and wage inflation, it exists only in short run or in long run or in both the period. How we can explain the trade-off between wage inflation and unemployment in short run and in long run. So in today's session, we will discuss about meaning of unemployment, types of unemployment, relationship between inflation and unemployment, nature of short run and long run Phillips curve, what is adaptive expectation and rational expectations, and then we will conclude of augmented Phillips curve. So all these topics we will discuss in today's session. So let us start from first topic, meaning of unemployment. You know that unemployment means when a person is willing to do work at a prevailing wage rate but not getting any job opportunities. That situation is called unemployment. In economics, unemployment refers to the condition and extent of joblessness within an economy. Unemployment can be measured in terms of unemployment rate, which is the number of unemployed workers divided by the total labor force or total working force. And working force in between, what age group lies? 15 to 60 years. Age group lie in working population workforce. So if total number of unemployed worker divided by total number of workforce, then we can get unemployment rate or we can calculate unemployment rate. Hence, unemployment is the condition of not having a job, often referred to as being out of work or unemployed. And in India or in other developing countries and in developed countries, this problem always exists. No one economy has achieved full employment rate. And according to Keynes, at the full employment rate, if we achieve full employment, then 5 to 6% voluntary unemployment can be exist. So unemployment is a situation where a person is willing to do work at a prevailing wage rate but not getting job opportunities. That is called unemployment. And it's a very dangerous situation for all of the whole world or all of the economies. Because if people will remain unemployed or jobless, then their contribution in GDP will be zero. When their contribution will be zero, then how our economy can grow, how we can achieve higher growth rate of the economy. So it's a very dangerous situation for each and every economy. Now next is various types of unemployment. How many types of unemployment exist in an economy or in whole world? Broadly, if we categorized this unemployment, then it can be classified into two groups. One is rural unemployment and other is urban unemployment. You know that in whole economy, some people are living in rural areas and some people are living in urban areas. For example, in India, here 70% people are living in rural areas and 30% people are living in urban areas. And in other developed countries, some people live in rural area and some live in urban area. So we can categorize unemployment in two main broad categories, urban and rural unemployment. But in common, if we classify unemployment, then we can say that unemployment may be cyclical unemployment. Cyclical unemployment is that type of unemployment which occurs due to business cycles. You know that business cycles are wave like fluctuations. In business, sometimes there is a boom situation. When there is a boom situation, it means inflation is higher in economy. Producer will encourage to produce more goods and services. When producer produce more goods, then investment will increase. Due to increase in investment, production will increase, employment level will increase, income level will increase. So employment opportunities will generate in case of boom situation. And if there is a depression or recession situation exists in an economy, then people will be unemployed because producer will discourage to produce more goods and services. When production fall, employment level will also fall. So cyclical unemployment depends upon business cycles. And business cycles has four stages: boom, recession, depression, and recovery. And it occurs during the time period. And next unemployment is seasonal unemployment. This seasonal unemployment mainly found in rural areas. You know that agriculture production is a seasonal production. Agriculture production depends upon nature, and nature may be favorable or may not be. And you know that some crops are related with winter season and some crops are related with summer season. So if farmers are engaged in summer crops, then they will be unemployed at winter time period and vice versa. So seasonal unemployment mainly found in agriculture or in rural areas where most of the people are engaged in agricultural activities. Next is frictional unemployment. Frictional unemployment is a common unemployment which can be found in developed countries or in developing countries. Frictional unemployment is a situation when a person remains unemployed If a person leave one job to search another job or better job opportunity, the time period in between that person remain unemployed, that situation is called frictional unemployment. Each and every person want to gain higher wages or higher salary. If a person is not satisfied with his present job, and if he give resign to that job and search another job which give him higher pay or higher salary, but in between the time period, if he remain unemployed during 3 months or 4 months or 6 months to search another good job, that time period is called, in which the person remain unemployed, that is called frictional unemployment. Next is educated unemployment. Educated unemployment mainly found in those person who are highly educated but they are not getting job opportunities according to their qualification or according to their knowledge. So that type of unemployment we can see everywhere, where at present people are getting more and more educational facilities and they are getting higher education, but they are not getting jobs opportunities according to their qualification or according to their knowledge. That's why this type of unemployment exists. Next is technical unemployment. You know that at present we are using modern technologies and modern equipments, advanced techniques, as well as technology is getting more advanced or more better. Some people who resist to get this change, they remain unemployed. As you know that at present each and every offices, all works are done by computer or by uh, online. If people are not willing to or not interested to work in this mode, then they will be, if they don't cop up with this new or modern advanced technological change, then they will remain unemployed. So, technical unemployment is that unemployment which exists due to change in technologies. And if people resist to adopt this change, and if they are not willing to adopt these changes and they are not efficient to work on modern technologies, then they will remain unemployed. So, that is technical unemployment. Now, next is structural unemployment. This structural unemployment mainly exists due to some bottlenecks or loopholes in infrastructural facilities. If there is a shortage in raw material or in supply of labor, and if infrastructure is not very good available, then this type of unemployment exists. So, structural unemployment basically exists when our country's infrastructure is not good, and if infrastructure bottlenecks or some loopholes exist in an economy, then this type of unemployment exists because production will be disturbed. If infrastructure facility is not available, if labor supply is not according to the demand for labor, and if raw material is not properly available in our country, and if technology is not sound or not good, then this type of, and roads, transportation, banking, insurance, these types of services if not available properly, then production activities will be disturbed, and when production will not be held, then how employment opportunities can generate? So unemployment exists due to bottlenecks of infrastructure. Next is disguised unemployment. Disguised unemployment is also known as hidden unemployment. This type of unemployment mainly found in rural areas or in agriculture sector. In agriculture sector, you know that most of the family members mainly engaged in agricultural activities. And if we separate some people from agriculture sector, then the marginal productivity will remain same. And if it means the total production will remain same if we separate some people from agriculture sector. It means the contribution of that person who are openly visible that they are engaged in agricultural activity, but their contribution in marginal productivity is zero. If their contribution in marginal productivity is zero, it means they are looking just as employed person, but they are disguised unemployed. They are hidden unemployed because their contribution is nil. You know that if in business, any business activity, if family members are engaged in that business activity, and the total profit is, for example, if total profit is 50 lakh, if we separate two people from that business, only three people are doing, then the profit will remain same. It means the another two-person which we separate from that business activity, their contribution in marginal productivity was zero. So, this type of unemployment is called disguised unemployment or hidden unemployment, and it can be we can see in this type of unemployment in rural areas or in agriculture sector. So, these are various types of unemployment. One is cyclical unemployment, next is seasonal unemployment, next is frictional unemployment, next is educated unemployment, next is technical unemployment, next is structural unemployment, and disguised unemployment. And there may be so many other types of unemployment like underemployment. If any person is not doing work according to his or her qualification, that person will be called underemployment. For example, if MBA degree holder is doing work in a petrol pump, that is called underemployment. If a person is not getting job opportunities according to his or her qualification, that is called underemployment. So there are many various types of unemployment exist all over the world and in each and every economy. Next is three important types of unemployment. The three main important types of unemployment, number one is frictional unemployment. Frictional unemployment. This type of unemployment occurs naturally when workers are between jobs or have just graduated and are looking for work for the first time, that is frictional unemployment. Cyclical unemployment is a regularly unemployment. The economy, you know, that regularly goes through ups and downs because economy is a dynamic, not a static in situation. So economy regularly goes through ups and downs. When it enters recession, more people become unemployed. And when it enters in boom situation, then more people will get job opportunities. So in case of boom, people will be employed, and in case of recession or depression, people will be unemployed. So this type of unemployment mainly occurs due to business cycles or various stages of businesses which occurs due to time or due to some fluctuation in economy. Next is structural unemployment. Structural unemployment is that unemployment when there is a mismatch between the skill people have learned and the skills of job market requires, this causes structural unemployment. It means if market require different type of skill, but people have another type of skill, if there is a mismatch in between of the demand for skill and the supply of skill, then this will create, or this will increase the situation of structural unemployment. So these are three main important types of unemployment. Now next is introduction of inflation and Phillips curve. You know that A.W. Phillips propounded the inverse relationship between inflation and unemployment. So in this model being developed, when unemployment is at an equilibrium level, then inflation is constant. Phillips curve explain the negative or inverse relationship between unemployment and inflation. If inflation is constant, then employment will also remain constant. If inflation rises, then unemployment will be less. If inflation falls, then unemployment will rise. So inflation and unemployment have inverse relationship. And how it is possible? You know that when wage inflation increases, then supply of labor will increase because people are willing to do more work at high wage rate. When wage rate increases, more people are willing to do work. If people will be willing to do more work, then their supply of labor will rise, and due to rise in supply of labor, unemployment will be less. So Phillips curve explain the inverse relationship between inflation and unemployment. Positive relationship between output, because as well as wage inflation increases, unemployment will fall, but output level will rise. So increase in inflation will positively affect to output level, but negatively affect on unemployment rate. So hence upward sloping Phillips curve shows that there is a positive relationship between inflation and output level. But there is an inverse relationship between inflation and unemployment rate. Now the question is that is it possible in the Phillips curve model, short run Phillips curve model, to run the economy sustainably at lower unemployment, higher output, but at higher level of inflation? No. Its answer is no. This is only exist in short run. It means Phillips curve explained this inverse relationship between inflation and unemployment, which exists only in short run, which may be possible in short run, but not in long run. You know that economy can be divided in three time periods. One is very short period. That time period is known as market period, in which supply can't change, supply can't increase or decrease. In short run, when some factors remains variable and some remains constant, then supply can change only with the help of variable factor, not with the help of fixed factor, because we can't change fixed factor in short run. So, this trade off between wage inflation and unemployment mainly exists in short run but not in long run. Because long run is a situation in which we can change each and every factor of production. All factors of production are perfectly mobile, we can change easily. So in long run, there will be no trade-off in between of wage inflation and unemployment. So Phillips curve explain inverse relationship and it exists only in short run. The trade-off between inflation and unemployment exists only in short period, not in long run. So in the long run, there is no trade-off between unemployment and inflation. If you hold output above, then inflation will accelerate as wage setters will continue to push up their money wage to protect their real wages, and the short run Phillips curve will continuously shift upward period after period. But in long run, Phillips curve will be vertical or parallel to the y-axis. But in short run, Phillips curve will be downward sloping curve which shows inverse relationship between wage inflation and unemployment. So the trade-off between this inflation and unemployment mainly exist in which time period? Short period, not in long period. Now next is, this is the short run Phillips curve. This short run Phillips curve generally slopes downward. When the economy is overheating, there is low unemployment but high inflation. On y-axis, we have taken inflation, and on x-axis, we have taken unemployment. And you know that at 1% inflation rate, when the inflation rate is lower, then unemployment rate is higher, which is 9%, as well as inflation increases from 1% to 5%, unemployment rate falls from 9% to 2%. So we can say that Phillips curve explains the inverse or negative relationship between inflation and unemployment. But this inverse relationship mainly exists in short run, not in long run. When there is a recession, unemployment will be higher, but inflation will be lower. Because at the time of recession, producers will discourage when price level falls, then producers profit motive will fall, they will produce less because their main aim is to earn maximum profit. When their profit motive will be fall, then they will produce less. When they will produce less, they will hire less workers, then unemployment rate will be higher. So, when there is a recession, unemployment is high but inflation is low. So, this is short run Phillips curve. Now, next is the short run trade off between inflation and unemployment. Phillips curve shows the short run trade off between inflation and unemployment, and both have inverse relationship or negative correlation between the rate of unemployment and the rate of inflation. It's very important to policymakers relative to monetary policy and fiscal policy when they attempt to influence the aggregate demand. And aggregate demand, you know that it's the total demand or whole demand by all country people. It is the sum total of C and I. C is demand for consumption and I means demand for investment. If there is a two sector economy, then aggregate demand has two components, C and I. If there is a three sector economy, then aggregate demand has three components, C plus I plus G. C is consumption, I is investment, G is government expenditure. And if there is a four sector economy exists in an economy. Like four sector means like farm sector, household sector, government sector, and rest of the world. Then aggregate demand components will be four. Number one is C, that is consumption expenditure. Number two is I, that is investment expenditure. Number three is G, that is government expenditure. And number four is net export, which is the difference between export and import. So, in four sector economy, aggregate demand has four components: C plus, I plus, G plus, net export, or X minus M. X is export and M is import. Now, if to see this inverse relationship and to use this inverse relationship, policymakers like monetary policy or fiscal policy, they can take initiative to influence the aggregate demand in short run. Initially, policymakers assumed it offered a menu of options. Choose any point on Phillips curve to control unemployment. And there is a trade off. High unemployment means low inflation, and low unemployment means high inflation. So, this is the trade off between inflation and unemployment. That's why this Phillips curve slopes generally downward from left to right, and this shows inverse or negative relationship between inflation rate and unemployment rate. Now, next is this is long run Phillips curve. You know that there is no trade off exist in long run. Trade off means that if one thing is increasing, other will be decreasing. And if we want to gain something, we have to sacrifice something. That is a trade off. But this trade off, which exists in between of wage inflation and unemployment only in short run, but in long run, there will be no trade off between inflation and unemployment. So, in long run Phillips curve, LPC means long run Phillips curve. This long run Phillips curve will be always vertical or parallel to the y axis, which shows that employment rate is fixed. And if we assume that there is a full employment which can maybe exist in long run, not in short run, and if inflation increases or decreases, this long run Phillips curve will not change. Employment rate will not change. This U star means unemployment rate, which is fixed or constant at various expected rate of inflation. That is called long run Phillips curve. In long run Phillips curve will be vertical, but in short run Phillips curve will be downward sloping. Downward sloping curve will show trade-off or inverse relationship between inflation and unemployment, but long run Phillips curve, which is vertical or parallel to the y-axis curve, which shows no relationship between inflation and unemployment. Here, unemployment rate is constant or fixed at each and every level of expected inflation. Either inflation increases or decreases, this long run Phillips curve or unemployment rate will not get affected by that inflation rate. So we can say that there is no trade off in between of wage inflation and unemployment exist in long run, but it may exist in short run according to A.W. Phillips. Now next is, and here SPC means short run Phillips curve. This short run Phillips curve number 1, as well as output increases or wage inflation increases, this Phillips curve will shift to the right hand side or upward. So, if we assume that first equilibrium point is A, this is short run Phillips curve number 0, at this 9% expected inflation rate, and if inflation falls from 9% to 6%, then short run Phillips curve will shift to the left hand side and the equilibrium point will be B. So, but long run Phillips curve will remain always constant or vertical. Next is, this is short run Phillips curve and long run Phillips curve. In short run Phillips curve will be downward sloping curve, and in long run Phillips curve will be vertical, because there is no trade-off in between of inflation and unemployment in long run, but there is a trade-off in between of wage inflation and unemployment in short run. So the nature of this curve will be in different shape in short run and in long run. In short run, curve will be downward sloping curve, and in long run, curve will be vertical. Now next is long run Phillips curve. Long run Phillips curve is a vertical curve. Long run Phillips curve is a vertical curve. Unemployment does not depend on money growth and inflation in the long run. We always return to the natural rate of unemployment, but at a higher price level. If the Federal Reserve System increases the money supply, in the short run, unemployment will fall, because we know that as well as inflation increases, unemployment will fall. Whenever money supply rises, inflation will rise and unemployment will fall, and there is a trade-off in between of inflation and unemployment. So this relationship will exist in short run, but in long run, unemployment will return to its natural rate. So in long run, Phillips curve will be vertical. This is vertical Phillips curve, and at A point here inflation rate is low, but at B point inflation rate is high. And this vertical line is showing that this rate of unemployment is natural rate of unemployment. Here unemployment rate is constant, it is not affected by the change in inflation. At high inflation it will remain constant, at low inflation it will remain constant, it will not change. Unemployment remains at its natural rate in the long run. And when the Fed increases money supply, then rate of inflation will also increase, because there is a positive or direct relationship between money supply and inflation rate. So this is long run Phillips curve. Now next is expected inflation shift the short run Phillips curve. If we expect that inflation rate will increase, then Phillips curve can also shift either to the upward or downward. Depends upon expected inflation is increasing or decreasing. But in long run, expected inflation rises and the short run Phillips curve shift to the right. If we expect that inflation will rise in future or in long run, then in short run, Phillips curve will shift to the right hand side. For example, here Long run Phillips curve, as you know that it is always vertical or parallel to the y-axis, and short run Phillips curve is always downward sloping curve. And if we expect that inflation will rise in future, then short run Phillips curve will shift to the right hand side, then equilibrium point will also move or shift from A to C. Here first equilibrium point is A, where short run Phillips curve intersect long run Phillips curve. A point is equilibrium point at low, and this A point is showing that low expectation of inflation. But if we expect that inflation rate will increase in future, then short-run Phillips curve will shift to the right-hand side parallel. So short-run Phillips curve, this red line is showing that high expected inflation rate we are expecting. That's why this equilibrium point shifts from A to C. And here, expansionary policy moves the economy up along the short run Phillips curve. This is expected inflation, which may be shift to the short run Phillips curve, either to the right hand side or left hand side. Now, next is adaptive expectation. What is the meaning of adaptive expectation? And what is rational expectation? And how these expectations are related with Phillips curve. Now, what is adaptive expectation? This adaptive expectation theory is the proposition that people base their forecast or their predictions on recent past information rather than future information. Once the government causes the inflation rate to rise or fall, people adopt their inflationary expectations to the current inflation rate. The result is a short run Phillips curve that intersects the vertical long run Phillips curve. Over time, the economy self corrects to the natural rate of unemployment. In case of this adaptive expectation, we adopt the previous trends, and to see the previous trends and previous forecasting, previous data, we can forecast for future. So adaptive expectation theory mainly tells us about the forecast, the behavior of the person or any policy maker who make their decisions according to the past information, or their forecasting mainly depends upon recent past information. If we are if we say that inflation rate was higher in some previous years, and we are watching that some trends of population growth, so we can predict that if population growth is increasing, then we can predict about future that it will also increase in future. And if we see that inflation is in rate is increasing from last 5 years, we can predict about future that inflation will also rise in future. So that type of expectation is called adaptive expectation, in which we propose that to see the past information we can predict for future. Once the government cause that inflation rate to rise or fall, people adopt their inflationary expectation. For example, we know that price of milk is always increasing. So we can predict for future that it will also increase in future. So this type of expectation is called adaptive expectation. People adopt their inflationary expectations to the current inflation rate. This result The result is a short run Phillips curve, which is always downward sloping curve, which intersects long run Phillips curve that remains always vertical or parallel to the y axis. So, over time, the economy self corrects to the natural rate of unemployment. So, this is the main reason behind this theory. This is called adaptive expectation. Now, next is rational expectation. You know that economy always studies rational people and the behavior of rational people. Rational people are those people who know their good or bad, who know or aware about all these situations, who knew that who know that how they can get more goods at lower spending at they want to get maximum profit, and the rational people know about how they can earn maximum profit at minimum cost, and being a consumer how they can get maximum goods at lower spending. So rational expectation theory is based on people's expectation. For example, if government policies are predictable, people immediately anticipate or predict higher or lower inflation. Workers quickly change their nominal wages as business changes price. Consequently, inflation worsens or improves and unemployment remains unchanged at the natural rate of unemployment. So, in this case, if government policies are predictable, people can anticipate higher or lower inflation, workers quickly change their nominal wages as business changes their price level. So inflation may be worse the situation and worse the situation of unemployment, and it may improve the situation. But unemployment will remain constant in long run. Thus there is no short run Phillips curve, only the vertical long run Phillips curve is identical to adaptive expectation theory. Thus, there is no short run Phillips curve, and the vertical long run Phillips curve is identical to adaptive expectation theory. So, this is the main reason behind this rational expectation. In this rational expectation, we expect for future to take decision rationally, not irrationally. And if we think about all the situation, and if we collect data from previous years information, and then we can decide for future, and we make decision rationally, that is called rational expectation. Here we have not adopted, we have taken decision rationally and by collecting proper uh, data and proper evidences. This is the basic difference in between of adaptive expectation and rational expectation. In adaptive expectation, we adopt those things which mainly exist in previous years, and we can adopt that type of information for future also. But in rational expectation, we are not adopting the same thing which we have seen in previous years. We will make rationally decision. We will collect all the information, and to see that information, we will make decisions. We will take decisions rationally. That is called rational expectations. Now, next is what is the rational expectation theory? people use all the available information to predict the future, including future monetary policies and fiscal policy. And you know that monetary policy is made by Reserve Bank of India or Federal Reserve System in USA, and fiscal policy is made by government. And the main tools of monetary policy are two. Number one is quantitative, number two is qualitative, and the instrument of fiscal policies are like public expenditure, public revenue, public debt, and budget. And monetary policies tools are like bank rate, open market operation, cash reserve ratio, statutory liquidity ratio, and in qualitative, margin requirements, moral suasion, direct action, and rationing of the credit. And if people use all the available information to predict about future, including future monetary policy and fiscal policy of the government, then that type of expectation is called rational expectation. Next is the Friedman Phillips Phelps Phillips curve analysis. Their reasoning comes from the expectation augmented Phillips curve. In this augmented Phillips curve, here equation is pi is inflation, pi e is expected inflation, and this theta is showing sensitivity of pi to unemployment gap. Here U is unemployment and UN is natural rate of unemployment, which remains always constant or vertical curve. So this theta is showing the gap in between of unemployment rate and natural rate of unemployment. U is unemployment and UN is natural rate of unemployment. So this is the equation of expectations augmented Phillips curve, which was explained or given by Friedman Phelps. Next is now inertia augmented Phillips curve. This inertia augmented Phillips curve, here pi 1 is equals to pi minus 1. Pi 1 is current year inflation and minus 1 is previous year inflation. So current inflation is equals to inflation inertia plus output gap. Phillips relation. What is the relationship explained by Phillips? Phillips explained that there is a positive relationship between inflation and output level, but there is an inverse relationship between inflation and unemployment rate. So Phillips relationship is that positive relationship between y means output, and pi means inflation. Higher output leads to higher inflation. If inflation increases, output level will also increase. And if inflation lowers or falls, then output level will also falls. And there is a negative relationship between wage inflation and unemployment. If inflation increases, unemployment falls. If inflation falls, unemployment increases. And this type of trade-off in between of inflation and unemployment, this always exists only in short run, not in long run. So this inertia augmented Phillips curve is equivalent to, also called the expectation augmented Phillips curve, where expected inflation is equals to previous inflation. Next is Phillips curve summary. Here we have discussed about short run Phillips curve, long run Phillips curve, and in short run, inflation, when inflation increases, both means output level will also rise and employment opportunities will also generate. But in long run, if inflation increases, it does not have any impact on output level or employment level. That's why long run Phillips curve is always vertical or parallel to the y-axis, because in long run there is no trade-off between unemployment and inflation, but in short run curve will be downward sloping curve or negatively sloped curve, which shows inverse relationship between inflation and unemployment. So here downward sloping curve is showing short run Phillips curve, and this LRPC is long run Phillips curve, which is vertical. And beyond this outer side of this LRPC curve, here is a recessionary gap will exist in an economy, and under this LRPC curve, which the short run Phillips curve which lies under this LRPC, that will show inflationary gap situation. So conclusion here, Phillips curve, fiscal policy not helpful in long run, because in long run if inflation rate increases or decreases, it will not change the unemployment rate. So we can conclude from today's session that we have discussed about various types of unemployment which mainly exist in each and every economy, and how Phillips curve explain the relationship between unemployment and inflation. So in today's session we have discussed the trade-off in between of inflation and unemployment, which mainly found in short run, which mainly exist in short run. That's why curve will be downward sloping curve. But in long run, there is no trade-off between unemployment and inflation rate, so that curve will be vertical. So we can say that Phillips curve mainly explain the inverse relationship, and the theory of unemployment and inflation mainly exist in short run, not in long run. And curve nature will be downward sloping in short run and vertical in long run. And there is different types of unemployment like cyclical, or frictional, and seasonal, disguised. So many types of unemployment we can see in each and every country. So in today's session we have discussed about all these topics. Thank you.